Hey, if you love our show, How to Build an Audience, please consider giving it a rating on Apple Podcasts or wherever else you listen to this podcast. We are trying to help as many entrepreneurs, business owners, and creatives as possible through this podcast, and in order to build our audience, we need your help. A rating and review on Apple Podcasts bring more exposure to our show. Don't wait. I know you will say to yourself that you will do it later, but head over to Apple Podcasts now and drop a quick review. Thank you in advance. Now, let's get to the show.
I think our generation of people can really be lazy, honestly, where they're like, oh, I saw you did this. Like, can you just tell me everything? And I'm like, well, I've spent years reading. I worked in marketing. I was a consultant. I studied film and business at UT. Like, this is something that for me was a passion project of taking like knowledge I'd learned and applying it into something tangible.
Welcome to How to Build an Audience. We interview the top creatives, marketers, and communicators to help you become an expert at building an audience so you can grow your influence, increase sales, and effectively share your story. This show is brought to you by Gatosi Collective. Hello and welcome to the fourth episode of How to Build an Audience. I am your host, Matthew Gatosi. Today I am talking with Shruthi Parker. Shruthi is a wife, mother, Christian, travel and lifestyle blogger based here in Austin, Texas. Her blog called The Honest Truth started in 2016 right after she got married and moved to London. She wanted to share about her travels to her friends and family back home in the States, but little did she know that many others wanted to follow her travels and life. As life has changed, so has her blog. She moved back to Austin with her husband and started to travel less and start a family. As you follow her work over the years, you feel like you grow up with Shruthi and are a part of her family. She now talks a lot about being a mother, a woman, and her faith. She has gained a big following of over 130,000 followers on Instagram and over 400,000 monthly views on Pinterest while working with big brands like Whole Foods and Cliff Bar. Shruthi lives up to her name, The Honest Truth, as she speaks openly about her life. She's not afraid of calling out the injustices in the world or telling people about the struggles in her own life. In this episode, we cover Shruthi's start to her blog. We talk about how she got her first few followers on her blog. We discuss how she built her audience even as her content and subjects have grown and changed. And we talk about how to stay consistent online while staying balanced in her family life. I would love to hear what you think as you're listening to the podcast, so reach out to me, Matthew Gatosi, on LinkedIn or Twitter, and we could talk there. Now, let's talk to Shruthi.
I started my Instagram when I got engaged. I had an Instagram before, but I barely posted on it, so I just deleted it. And then started a real one when we got engaged, because that was about when hashtags started to really, make a difference. And so my friends were like, oh, you need a hashtag for when you get married. And so it was very...
The hashtag marriage.
Exactly. So it was super just casual. But then we got married and we moved abroad to London. And I started my blog on the flight over there just because I thought it would be so cool to share about adventures living abroad as a newlywed couple to my friends and family. And writing has always been something I've loved to do. So I thought, no pressure. Let's just have fun with this and post pictures and write about our experiences. So that's honestly how it started. Zero pressure, zero business goals. I moved over to London as a consultant with a firm. So I had no financial motivation with this blog either. And then as we traveled, since we lived abroad, we were able to travel pretty much once or twice a month to a different country or a different part of England. I thought, okay, I need to be more organized about this. So let's, I want to upgrade my equipment a little bit. I was a film major back at UT. And so I thought, oh, let me get a really good GoPro and the best whatever of this and that. It was just a really big hobby, honestly.
In a completely different continent than friends and family, Shruti started to get followers that weren't from home. A lot of people start blogs or projects and never get traction. I wanted to understand how Shruti did it for herself.
Yeah, so definitely it was weird when I first started getting people following me that I didn't know. So I'll be frank, like we had 550 people at our wedding. We have huge families and tons of friends. And so I wasn't going to, I didn't start off my blog and Instagram and everything with just like nobody or 10 friends or something. I had like a little bit of a cushion, but I started, and this is something I wish more people would do. I just researched, like, spent hundreds of hours reading. Like, they say it takes 10,000 hours to be good at something, like,
Yeah,
really
Malcolm
excellent.
Gladwell to become
Yes,
an expert. Yeah.
yes. And I think our generation of people are can really be lazy, honestly, where they're like, "Oh, I saw you did this. Like, can you just tell me everything?" And I'm like, "Well, I've spent years reading. I worked in marketing. I was a consultant. I studied film and business at UT. Like, this is something that for me was a passion project of taking like knowledge I'd learned and applying it into something tangible. Even though I moved over to London as a consultant, I actually wasn't even put on a project. I just kept being pushed and pushed and pushed my start date. And so I started having like anxiety of what am I going to tell my employers when I move back to the States? Oh, yeah, I was abroad for a year and not put on a single project. And so there was a little bit of desperation and motivation for me to create a portfolio of some sort and show my employer when I come back, hey, I did this for my brand, like air quotes, my brand, but I could do this for your brand. And so I've always been like a business minded person. I think everybody should be researching. You can learn so much from people if you just read. It's insane, you know? It's better. I think it's better than sending a DM or an email. It's actually like a lot of people share their experiences openly. And so for me, like gaining those first like several thousand followers were from hashtags and from engaging with people, posting pictures that were clear, not doing like this weird um, self promoting social media that it's kind of turned into, of like, oh, look, I'm in Spain, but really it's a picture of you and nothing of Spain. It like,
Yep.
do you know what I mean?
Yeah, totally.
Like
Totally.
take it back to what do people want to see? And I had a group of friends also, none of them are bloggers. So I would ask them pretty honestly, and they would be honest with me, like, do you like this content or this one? Or is this more interesting? Or do you think this is more self serving and that I'm trying to promote myself and look cool here? And also, if anybody is married or like in a serious relationship, get your partner on board because having that second brain to like be so blunt with you and be like, hey,
Yes.
I just think you're trying to make yourself look really cool in this. And like, you look dumb. Oh,
I
okay.
I was gonna shout out. I was gonna have to shout out your husband because I was like, this man is truly an Instagram husband. He kills it. He's great on camera, but I'm like, he had to. I was gonna ask, who did all the videos when you're in front of
Oh,
Notting
yeah.
Hill? Who is taking those photos? It had to have been him because
Well, it
you
was,
guys moved together just by
I
yourselves.
know. Well, actually, a lot of those videos were taken by like friends I made there.
That's awesome.
I know we got plugged into a church that was so awesome, and like I met other bloggers and entrepreneurs and moms who were at home who had time, and so I would say, "Hey, do you want to explore East London with me?" And they would just like bring their kids along and just like I had a stabilizer on my GoPro that like worked a little bit, and we just it wasn't this big huge production; it was just fun. But my husband is truly like he's my partner, like literally in my business, he's my partner. And he posts on social media himself once every year and a half, kind of.
Meanwhile, you're posting every day.
Yeah. So it's really nice to have that balance in our personal lives.
As Shruti started to grow her audience and explore Europe with her husband, she started to create consistently each week. Shruti has been consistently taking action to grow her brand for years, and I wanted to understand her secret behind her consistency.
I would say, just like any other job, you have to show up. And it may not be that you want to post, but you'll check your email and like try to zero that inbox. You'll get on Pinterest and schedule pins for a month and a half. Like you have to show up every day and do something. And something that I'm like literally religious about is taking a Sabbath. And so I try to take fully one day off of social media or technology and just step away from it so that I'm refreshed. So I would say my discipline is both in showing up, but also in resting. And my consistency is to at least post 3 times a week. I've been able to do that since giving birth, even. I was just like 3 times a week, let's do this. Um, and never, ever force yourself to post because it shows. It shows in your tone, it shows in your content, like in the photo that you think is like interesting, but your husband will be like, what were you thinking? Like, like just it's okay to step back, but then use your time for something else.
I thought, like, as I was researching for this interview, I felt like I grew up with you from like marriage to like right now. Like, I'm like, I feel like I'm part of this family now. And but I love how genuinely open you are with how you post and what you share about.
Thank you.
But when it comes to Sabbathing, like, was that when it comes to posting and stopping one day at a time, is that hard for you to do when there's so many people out there that are saying, post and like, do it every day? But also, do you ever come into contact when you want to rest, but brands are saying, can you post on this day specifically? How is that? How is your faith and just kind of what you want in your life? Does life design affect sometimes some of these business aspects to your brand?
Yeah, definitely. Thank you so much. That was really sweet. So something I have noticed is most brands don't ask to be posted on Sundays anyway. And so I try to keep Sundays pretty like clearly as family and church day where like we get together with community, like I put my phone away for a long time, just really try to unplug on Sundays. I think one of the saddest things that could happen is on a day that's the weekend for someone to be holed up and just be like sitting in front of a little screen and just be like scrolling. Like that does something. It affects your mind and it doesn't prepare you for the rest of the week, get outside, go on a run, paint, read a book, cuddle your dog, do something that actually brings your soul rest. And so for me, that looks, like church and family and friends. But I have had situations where brands are like, we do want you to post on Sunday. Actually, next Sunday, in fact, I had a brand come in and say, we'd like you to post on Sunday. And it's not just me, like it's 2 other influencers who are also posting for this brand. And it's like a collaboration. And both of these influencers are so much bigger than I am. So I'm pretty shocked that I was selected. So what I'm going to have to do is just change my rest day from Saturday or Sunday to Saturday or Saturday to Friday. It doesn't have to be this rigid like only on Sundays I will unplug because that's just not life, okay? And like sometimes I have a burst of creativity and I'm like, "Oh, like where's my laptop? I just feel like writing." Uh, and so I think you don't have to be rigid about the day, but you do need to be disciplined in selecting time to rest.
Do you feel like the discipline of resting helps your creativity and your quality overall when it comes to posting, but just overall of like how you want to share about your life?
100%. I can tell when people don't rest. Oh, there's so many signs. One, they become obsessed with their work in a way that's like they find so much value from it, and they become unstable because work is not necessarily always stable. So I noticed that they find like their identity in it, where if one post doesn't do well, it is just the end of the world, right? Um, and just like all these things that I can see these in people because I have seen them in myself. And so then I'll be able to take a step back and be like, whoa, like you've had 5 sponsored posts in the past week. And you've also had 2 organic posts. You've posted every single day. And posting, side note, is so much more than just posting, right? Like it's engaging for 24 hours after that post. Um, and so I'll be like, you are running on nothing. And so I always tell my husband, like, if I am spiritually empty, I'm creatively empty. I have to rest.
After the break, Shruti tells us how she built a brand around not one niche, but many niches and subjects. This podcast is presented by Gatozi Collective. We are a marketing agency in Austin, Texas that teaches entrepreneurs how to create content and market their businesses. We can do the marketing for you or teach you how to do it yourself. Are you confused about where or how you need to market your business or side hustle? We have a free course that will clarify your marketing strategy in 5 days that you can sign up online at our website, gatozicollective.com. Now, let's get back to the show. The advice when starting a project or business is to niche down. Shruti just wrote about her whole life, from faith to travel to family. Without a specific niche, you would think she would not create a big audience, but she's done just the opposite. How did she even do this?
So there's two sides to this. There's like the side where I started my blog without caring really what people like thought. And so when I started my blog, I set 5 days a week to talk about 5 different topics, or 6 days a week talk about 6 topics. I think it was like Mondays were going to be about relationships, Tuesdays were travel, Wednesdays were food, Thursdays were thoughts, Fridays were fashion, and Sundays were faith. And it was just what I did just to keep consistency and discipline, right? And even if I skipped, like, let's say I went to a restaurant today and I'd already passed by Wednesday eats, then I would just write it up and save it for a later Wednesday. And it just helped me like manage the chaos in my mind, or like, in my life. I'm not a niche person. I have tried, believe me, I have tried. Because that is what I've read as well. And I'm like, oh, my life would be so much easier if I was just this or doing that or focused on this. But that is just not who I am. That is not who God created me to be. That is not the content that flows from my fingers. And so, although it is now a big strength for me because I can work with brands that range from Whole Foods and their, local food to the government of a different country for travel. The thing is that it has caused me anxiety, and it has been very challenging to just like not give into the pressure of niching. So what I would say to someone is like, if that is not who you are, if you want to talk about more than one thing, just like honestly go with that, because the more you force yourself into what someone says success looks like, the less like content and happy and joyful you will be. That's just not who you were made to be if you're not made to be a niche person.
Right. But it does sound like, at least even if you were to do multiple topics, you have some sort of schedule
Yeah.
that organizes the chaos. And I think that that's kind of important, because I think I'm somebody that's fascinated by probably too many things, and it can't fit in all my brain. And, whenever you're posting, it's like, well, when do you post this and when do you post that? And the inconsistency. So even through different topics, you've created these days in which you can expect these things, whether it be for fashion on Friday or Wednesday eats. I love that. You talked about some anxiety, and talked about some anxiety of like building your audience and even just building your brand in general. And you've been doing it for a while, and obviously it definitely changes your mind when this goes from something that you just love to do and it's a hobby and
Mhm.
you're hanging out with some moms from your church in London to, okay, I'm trying to make an income. I'm trying to work with brands. And you're not, you're working with big brands. You're working with Whole Foods. Like, this is no joke. So like, is there or was there a moment where you felt like, I need to give up? Like, I just want to give up. And in that moment, or multiple moments, you can share all of them. Like, how did you keep creating, or
Mm.
did you stop, or like, how did you overcome that wall for you?
Okay. This is something that I pray about a lot, but I'm very like, I am so okay if God takes away my blog tomorrow and tells me to do something else. Like, I was not really made for social media. Like if I wasn't a blogger and I didn't have all these great conversations with people from across the world and about like tougher and deeper things, I would probably be doing a regular job and not on any form of social media. Like I'm not on Facebook, I'm not on Twitter. Like I just don't care to know about perfectly filtered things, which is why I want my blog to be a space where people get to know me and I get to know them. Like I know so many of my followers and they send me prayer requests. They tell me like, "Hey, I'm in an interracial relationship and like I'm dealing with this. Like what would you say to that?" Or, "Hey, I just picked up a Bible for the first time. Where should I start reading?" Or, "I'm trying to go vegetarian. Like, do you have like, like actual relationships?" I think wherever you are, whatever job you're in is a ministry and is a place for you to serve people. But I am not tied to blogging in any way. Something comes my way tomorrow that God is like, so clearly, you should be doing this. I will do it. And a lot of that can come from how shallow our space is sometimes. It can like affect my soul a little bit where I'm like, oh, I don't want to read about this. Like, I want to know more about this person. Or, um, like, when 50 people go to one restaurant and share the same photo of some artisan ice cream, I'm like, IDGAF. You know, I just, it is. And people can be different. Some people really care about that stuff. I like bloggers, like food bloggers, who talk to me about the restaurant owner and the chef and the story behind the creation, or people who travel and tell me about the culture and the people, and not just like this photo of them in some floral dress. Like, I want to know more. And sometimes when I do a quick scroll and I feel like it is just so shallow, it like hurts me. I'll be like, I don't want to do this anymore. What do you want me to do instead? But as it has been very clear, anytime I've tried to step away from blogging and like something else has come my way, it just has shut in my face. Like, I've been asked to run social media for this company, or like I've been asked to start a company with this person, or and anytime I'm like, oh, maybe this is my way to transition, something happens, those doors shut, and then I get like a huge form of encouragement with my blog, with some message or some business campaign or something. And so I don't know if that makes sense, but I have tried to leave this sphere sometimes, to be totally
And
frank.
you're stuck. You're gonna stay here.
Yeah, well, and I think it usually that also means that I'm burning out. And
Mm,
so I have recently had a burnout, um, probably when South by was canceled, because I lost about like $50,000 worth of business. And
wow.
it was really hard because we have another baby coming. I feel this pressure to provide and like take care of my family. And so when that happened, I know everybody was hurting, and but I also was hurting, and I was just like, this sucks that like my income can be based on something that could just be gone like that. And so I took like probably 3 or 4 weeks where I posted maybe once a week, and the other times I did focus my energy on something else, like Canva or Pinterest or Tailwind or something like that. I couldn't be online. I couldn't see like any shallow content, or I needed to have a break for my mind. So I think, even though I said earlier, like try to post 3 times a week, you have to listen to yourself.
Is there like one piece of advice you would give to anybody trying to like start some sort of blog, some sort of business online? What's like a one piece of, advice you would give them as they start out?
I think I would tell them that, in my opinion, for what that's worth, the best platforms are when people have do not have their guard up. When they are truly authentic, they don't say like, "Oh, vulnerable post alert." You don't need to say that. All of your content should be genuine, right? Like, or real talk alert. Like, just be you. even if it's travel, like, which I say even if it's travel, because travel, it's a little bit harder to talk about harder things with travel, but like there are things going around in the world all the time, and like you can post some pretty pictures of Notre Dame, but why don't you talk also about the historical significance of it and like what it meant for the people when it was burned, right? Like, get to the story behind the content if you expect to be long lasting. If you want to be short and quick and just rise to the top quickly, like, sure, be a fashion, like, no offense to fashion bloggers, be a fashion blogger, sell tons of cardigans and shoes, but you will not make a long term impact on people that way. It really depends what you want. If you want to make a long term impact, be a storyteller. If you want to make a short term impact and get famous and make money, stick to something that doesn't take you time to dig in your soul.
As we end the podcast, we will finish with a segment called Open Mic. We are going to end each episode by giving the guests a space to share about anything that is on their mind, more advice, or anything else that could be off-brand.
You know, I think that everybody has experiences that make them unique. And in a way, I think everybody should start a blog, even if it's not public, even if it's a private blog. I would encourage everyone to start getting their thoughts written out. I think it helps you understand like what makes you click and what makes you tick and all of those things. One of my favorite fashion bloggers, actually, she is so good about talking about her like past eating disorders and body dysmorphia. And I don't think she would have reached that level of being able to be honest with herself if she hadn't started creating. So I guess all of that is just to say, like, people should spend more time creating, and you'll probably find a lot of healing in different places in their life if they just put pen to paper.
This conversation with Shruthi taught me a lot about focusing on being genuine online versus being stuck to specific topics. You can follow Shruthi on Instagram at The Honest Shruth or follow her on her blog. All of the links to find Shruthi will be in the show notes. Thank you, Shruthi, for being on the show. If you like this show, tweet me at Matthew Gutozzi. And if you really love this show, drop a rating on Apple Podcasts or your podcast listening app. I will talk to you next week. This podcast is presented by Gutozzi Collective. We are a marketing agency in Austin, Texas that teaches entrepreneurs how to create content and market their businesses. We can do the marketing for you or teach you how to do it yourself. Are you in need of a logo? We have a team of creatives to help you with all your marketing and design needs. You can reach out to us by emailing us at hello@gutozzicollective.com or visit us online at our website, gutozzicollective.com. We hope that you enjoyed the show, and we'll see you in the next episode.